The Galactic Academy stood tall on the planet Nexus Prime. Students from many different worlds came here to learn. The building had shiny towers that reached up to the purple sky. Inside, aliens of all shapes and sizes walked through the halls. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like walking crystals. Hyun sat at his desk in the chemistry lab. He was the only human in the class. Most days he did not mind being different. The other students stared at him sometimes, but Hyun was used to it. Humans were new to space travel. Most aliens had never met a human before. The teacher was Professor Velthari. She looked like a giant insect with many legs. Her big eyes could see in all directions at once. She clicked her mouth parts together to get everyone's attention. "Today you will take your practical exam," she said. Her voice came through a small device that changed her clicks into words everyone could understand. "You will work in pairs. You must safely handle dangerous chemicals. One mistake could kill you." Hyun looked at his partner. Her name was Tara. She was like a blob of jelly that could change colors. Right now she was blue with worry. "I heard humans are very weak," Tara said. Her voice bubbled like water. "Maybe you should wear the special safety suit." Hyun smiled. "I will be okay with the normal safety gear. Thank you, though." Across the room, two students were whispering to each other. One was named Chris. He had green scales and looked like a lizard that walked on two legs. His partner was Nia. She was made of clear crystal that sparkled under the lights. Both of them kept looking at Hyun with angry faces. Chris did not like humans. He thought they did not deserve to be at the academy. Humans had only been in space for 30 years. His people had been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years. "That human thinks he belongs here?" Chris hissed quietly. "Let us show him what happens when weak creatures try to do real science." Nia's crystal body made a ringing sound. It meant she agreed. "We can make our chemical mixture extra strong. If some of it spills near the human, well, accidents happen during exams." They started mixing their chemicals, but they were not following the exam instructions. Chris carefully poured acid that could eat through metal. Nia added other chemicals that made it even more dangerous. The liquid in their container started to smoke and bubble. It was so strong that it made the air around it shimmer. Professor Velthari walked around the room. She stopped at Hyun's desk to check his work. "You are doing well, Hyun," she clicked, "but I notice you are not wearing the breathing mask. The fumes from these chemicals are toxic." "I can breathe fine, Professor," Hyun said. He was carefully measuring his chemicals. "The air system is working well." I checked the readings. The professor moved on to check other students. She did not see what Chris and Nia were planning. Their container now held a liquid so dangerous that it could kill most aliens in seconds. Just breathing near it would be deadly. "Time for an accident," Chris whispered. He moved the container close to the edge of their desk. It was pointing toward Hyun's work area. Tara saw what they were doing. Her jelly body turned orange with fear. "Hyun," she said urgently. "I think those two are—" Chris pushed the container. It fell through the air in slow motion. The deadly liquid splashed out in a wave. It flew straight toward Hyun. Students started screaming. Professor Velthari's mouth opened wide in horror. Everyone knew what would happen next. The acid would hit Hyun, his skin would melt. His bones would dissolve. He would die in terrible pain. There was no time to save him. The acid hit Hyun's arm and splashed across his desk. Everyone waited for the screaming to start. But Hyun just looked down at his arm with a curious expression. The acid sat on his skin like water drops. It was not burning through to his bones. It was just sitting there. Hyun rubbed his fingers over the drops. Then he sniffed them. "Huh," he said in a normal voice. "This smells like lemon juice mixed with something stronger. Is this citric acid and sulfuric acid together?" Nobody spoke. The whole room was completely silent. Even the machine seemed to stop making noise. Professor Velthari stared at Hyun with all of her big eyes. She could not believe what she was seeing. Tara had turned completely white. She was so shocked that she stopped moving entirely. Around the room, other students stood frozen. Their brains could not understand what they were watching. Chris's mouth hung open. His eyes were huge. Nia's crystal body had stopped shining. She looked dull and lifeless. The acid was eating through Hyun's desk. It was making a hole in the surface that was supposed to be acid-proof. Smoke rose from the growing hole. But Hyun's skin was fine. The acid just sat there like harmless water. Hyun picked up an empty bottle. He carefully poured some of the acid mixture into it. He held it up to the light to look at it. "This is really concentrated," he said. He sounded interested, not scared. The pH must be very low. Whoever made this knew what they were doing. He looked at Chris and Nia. Was this part of the advanced test? I do not remember seeing this in the study guide. Professor Velthari finally found her voice. Hyun, that mixture should have killed you. It should have melted your flesh in seconds. Why are you not hurt? How are you still alive? Hyun looked at his arm again. The skin was a little red where the acid had touched it. Oh, this? It stings a bit. Like getting soap in a cut. I should probably wash it off. He walked calmly to the emergency shower. He let water run over his arm. There, much better. Another human student named Daeho came over quickly. He looked worried. Are you okay? He asked in their language. That looked really bad. I am fine, Hyun said. Then he switched back to speaking Galactic Common so everyone could understand. I am not sure why everyone is so worried. It is just strong acid. Just strong acid? Nia's voice was high and loud. Her crystal body shook. That chemical could eat through a battle robot's armor. It could kill most species instantly. How are you standing there like nothing happened? Hyun looked confused. I mean, yes, it is pretty concentrated. But it is not like it is fluoroantimonic acid or something really dangerous. This is just concentrated sulfuric acid with some other stuff. My planet's rain is more acidic in some places. 3 students fainted when he said that. Professor Velthari had to hold onto a desk because her legs were shaking. Your planet's rain? She asked weakly. Rain that falls from the sky is this acidic? Well, in some areas where there are factories, yes, Hyun explained. We call it acid rain. It was a big problem before we cleaned up our industry. The pH can be 2 or 3, sometimes lower. It damages buildings and kills plants. But humans can walk in it just fine. It is not pleasant, but it will not kill you. Chris had backed away until he hit the wall. He was terrified. He had tried to kill Hyun with something that every alien knew was deadly. But Hyun was treating it like a minor problem. What kind of terrible world makes creatures that can survive acids like this? Chris whispered. The exam was forgotten. Everyone just stared at the human who had survived the impossible. Daeho stepped closer to Hyun and looked at him carefully. Unlike Hyun, Daeho had spent years at other schools before coming to the academy. He understood how aliens saw humans. He knew that what just happened was going to change everything. Hyun, Daeho said quietly in Korean. You know that should have killed you, right? That acid they threw at you was meant to be a weapon. Hyun blinked. He looked at the bottle of acid in his hand, then at Chris and Nia. Understanding slowly came to his face. Oh, they were trying to hurt me on purpose? Yes, Daeho said. They tried to murder you. Professor Velthari heard this. She was already calling for help on her communication device. Security, come to Chemistry Lab 401 immediately. We have an attempted murder situation. Chris and Nia looked at each other with panic in their eyes. Their plan had failed completely. Not only had they failed to hurt Hyun, but now everyone knew what they had tried to do. But something else was bothering Professor Velthari even more than the attack. She looked at Hyun with something like fear in her many eyes. Hyun, how is this possible? Our medical database says humans are fragile. It says you need careful temperature control, specific air mixtures, and protection from radiation. Nothing said you could survive contact with weapons-grade acid. Hyun shrugged. Maybe the database is incomplete? Humans are pretty tough, really. We evolved on a planet with lots of dangers. We had to be able to survive all kinds of things. Tara had started to move again. Her jelly body was now bright yellow, which meant she was extremely confused. But you are made of soft skin and thin bones. You have no armor, no protective shell, no scales. How can you be tough? Our skin is actually pretty good, Hyun explained. He sounded like a teacher giving a lesson. It has multiple layers. The outer layer is dead cells that protect the living cells underneath. It is slightly acidic to kill bacteria. It is waterproof and can handle a lot of damage before it breaks. A student named Minsu, who looked like a large bird, made a choking sound. Your skin is acidic? You cover yourselves in acid for protection? Only a little bit acidic, Hyun said. Just enough to keep us safe from germs. It is normal. Normal? Several students shouted at once. Professor Velthari was about to say something when Hyun did something that made everyone scream. He lifted the bottle of deadly acid to his mouth. He drank some of it. The sound of screaming filled the room. Professor Velthari tried to run to stop him, but she was too late. Tara's body completely fell apart in shock. Students were running for the exits. The emergency alarm started ringing. Hyun swished the acid around in his mouth like he was tasting wine. He looked thoughtful. Then he swallowed. The room went completely silent. Everyone stared at Hyun, waiting for him to collapse and die. Hyun smacked his lips. Definitely citric acid as the main ingredient. Strong sulfuric acid too, very concentrated. There is a metal taste, probably iron. The other chemicals give it a sharp finish. Overall, I would say it is quite refreshing. A bit too sour to drink a lot of, but it would probably work well as a cleaning solution. He poured more of the acid into his bottle and closed it.
Do you mind if I keep this?
I want to study it more carefully later. This could be useful for my research project. Professor Velthari made a sound that was not quite a word. Her legs gave out and she sat down hard on the floor. Her mouth parts clicked randomly, unable to form proper sentences. You drank weapons-grade acid, she finally managed to say. Hyun looked surprised. Was that a weapon? I thought it was just a really strong chemical mixture. Though I guess the other chemicals were a bit unusual. He looked at Chris and Nia again. His face showed understanding. You really did try to hurt me. That is disappointing. I thought we were all here to learn together. The direct way he said this made everyone uncomfortable. Chris had slid down the wall and was sitting on the floor. His scales had turned pale. Nia's crystal body had cracks running through it from stress. Daeho put his hand on Hyun's shoulder. You understand what you just did, right? You drank something that the entire galaxy considers to be extremely deadly. You are standing here like you just had a glass of juice. Should I not have done that? Hyun asked. He genuinely did not seem to understand the problem. A student from another species spoke up. His name was Junho and he was made of rock-like material. What else can humans survive? Can you breathe poison gas? Can you swim in lava? Can you survive in space? No, and definitely no, Hyun said quickly. We need oxygen to breathe. High temperatures will kill us. We cannot survive in vacuum. We have limits just like everyone else. We are just resistant to acids and certain chemicals. Our planet has a lot of chemical dangers, so we evolved to handle them. Professor Velthari had gotten back on her feet. She looked very old and tired suddenly. What kind of planet has so many chemical dangers that its creatures evolved to drink weapons-grade acid? Earth is not that bad, Hyun said. He sounded a bit defensive. Yes, we have volcanoes that produce toxic gases. Yes, we have acid rain in some areas. Yes, many of our plants and animals use poison and venom for defense. But it is also beautiful. We have forests and oceans and mountains. It is a good planet. This description of Earth did not make anyone feel better. A planet where poison and acid were common sounded terrifying to species that evolved on safer worlds. Security officers arrived with medical personnel. They surrounded Hyun carefully like he might explode. The medical team had protective suits and scanning equipment. They looked nervous. We need to examine you immediately, the lead doctor said. Her name was Soman and she had scales like a fish. Even if you feel fine, we need to understand what happened. This kind of chemical resistance should not be possible. Okay, Hyun agreed, though I really do feel fine. Better than fine, actually. That acid woke me up. It was better than coffee. Better than coffee. Professor Velthari repeated weakly. Is coffee also dangerous? Not really, Hyun said. It is a bit acidic, but humans drink it mostly because it has caffeine. That is a stimulant that helps us wake up. Nobody laughed. The idea that humans casually drank stimulant chemicals just to wake up in the morning was more disturbing than funny. Security moved to arrest Chris and Nia. Both of them did not resist. They were still in shock. Chris looked at Hyun with something like terror in his eyes. What are you? Chris whispered. What kind of creature survives what you just survived? Hyun thought about the question. Just a human. We are not special. We are just adapted to our environment like every other species. But everyone in the room knew that was not true. Humans were not normal. They were something else entirely. Something that could drink deadly acid and call it refreshing. Something that had evolved in conditions so harsh that they had become nearly indestructible by galactic standards. The medical team led Hyun away for examination. As he left, he waved goodbye to his classmates. He still carried his bottle of acid like a souvenir. Behind him, the chemistry class sat in shocked silence, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. In that moment, the galaxy learned an important lesson. Humans were not the weak, fragile creatures everyone thought they were. They were survivors from a death world, and they had no idea how abnormal they really were. The medical center was huge. It had equipment that could examine thousands of different alien species. The doctors there thought they had seen everything. They were wrong. Hyun sat on an examination table in a special room. 17 different machines scanned him at the same time. Each machine was designed to look at a different part of his body. Doctors watched through a glass window looking at screens that showed the scan results. Dr. Taewon was the head doctor. He had many arms and his body looked like it was made of metal. He had been a doctor for 300 years. He had never seen anything like Hyun. "This is impossible," said Dr. Jiho. She had long tentacles instead of arms. She used them to control many screens at once. His cells are packed so tight together. It is like his whole body is armored from the inside. Dr. Soman pointed at another screen. "Look at how his skin works. It has different acid levels in different layers. The outside is a little bit basic to protect him. The inside layers can handle extreme acid. His body automatically adjusts to protect itself." Hyun had taken off his shirt so they could scan him better. He sat patiently while the machines hummed and beeped around him. The spot where the acid had touched his arm was already almost healed. Just a small red mark remained. "How do you feel?" Dr. Taewon asked through a speaker. "Hungry," Hyun said. "I skipped breakfast. Is it normal for medical exams to take this long?" The doctors looked at each other. The idea that Hyun was thinking about food after drinking deadly acid seemed strange. But then again, everything about this human was strange. "We are being very thorough," Dr. Taewon said. "Can I ask you something? Can all humans survive acids like you did?" "Pretty much," Hyun answered. "Some people have more sensitive skin than others. But in general, yes, humans can handle corrosive chemicals fairly well. What I drank today would not usually be considered immediately dangerous by our standards." Dr. Jiho's tentacles twitched. "What would you consider immediately dangerous?" Hyun thought about it. "Fluoroantimonic acid is scary. It is about 2 quadrillion times stronger than pure sulfuric acid. That would definitely hurt. Hydrofluoric acid is also really nasty because it soaks into your tissues and damages nerves and bones. And there are some organic chemicals that are terrifying, like dimethylcadmium." Dr. Soman looked up these chemicals in the Galactic database. Her scales turned white with fear. "These are all classified as Class Omega hazardous materials. Only weapons facilities are allowed to have them." "You are saying humans work with these substances?" "We have to be very careful," Hyun explained. "But yes, Earth's chemical industry uses some pretty aggressive stuff. You should see what we use for rocket fuel. Hydrazine nitrogen tetroxide liquid fluorine. Some of it explodes if you look at it wrong." Dr. Taewon made a note to check Earth's entire industrial database. If humans casually worked with chemicals that other species used as weapons, there were serious questions about human technology. The testing continued for hours. Every test showed something that should not be possible. Hyun's blood could work normally even when it was extremely acidic or basic. His tissues could resist damage that would kill most other species instantly. His nerves could detect chemical threats without making him feel pain that would stop him from functioning. "It is like humans were designed specifically to survive chemical warfare," Dr. Jiho said. She was looking at a 3D model of Hyun's cells. "These adaptations are not random. They are systematic. They are defensive features. Earth's environment must be incredibly hostile," Dr. Soman added. "To develop these features naturally would require millions of years of constant chemical threats." Hyun heard this through the speaker and nodded. "Earth does have pretty active chemistry. We have volcanoes, acid rain, air pollution, rotting organic matter, and lots of microbes that use chemicals to attack each other. Plus many Earth animals evolved venom and poison. Humans had to adapt to survive in an environment where everything was trying to poison everything else." This casual description of Earth as a planet of constant chemical warfare made the doctors very uncomfortable. A chime sounded. Director Jiwoo appeared on a screen. She was made of crystal and looked like a geometric shape. "Doctor, I need your report on the human student." "The council is meeting to discuss the incident. They need to know if he is dangerous." "That is a complicated question, Director," Dr. Taewon said carefully. "Hyun is not trying to hurt anyone. But his biological abilities are so far outside normal parameters that we have to rethink what we know about life." "Is he stable? Could he have other abilities we do not know about?" Dr. Taewon looked at Hyun through the glass. The human was now reading his own medical data with interest. "We have no signs that he is unstable, But we have learned so much in the past few hours that I cannot rule out more surprises. Earth's biological database is very incomplete. Humans did not think their extreme adaptations were worth mentioning because, to them, these are normal features. They do not consider them extreme, Director Jiwoo said. From their perspective, this is just normal biology. Exactly. Director Jiwoo's crystal body shifted, creating new angles. The council is debating whether all human students need special safety training. Some council members want to restrict human access to certain areas. That seems like an overreaction, Dr. Taewon protested. Hyun has not done anything dangerous. He was the victim today. A victim who drank the weapon used against him and said it was refreshing, Director Jiwoo pointed out. The council is worried about what other normal human behaviors might be dangerous in a galactic context. Before Dr. Taewon could answer, an alarm went off. Dr. Jiho's tentacles moved quickly across the controls. We have a problem. The acid sample we took from Hyun's stomach is reacting with our container. It is becoming more corrosive, not less. How is that possible? Dr. Soman moved to look at the data. His body should have diluted it. Not with humans, Dr. Jiho said. His stomach acid mixed with the compound we gave him. It made something even stronger. The pH is now -3 and still dropping. Through the window, Hyun noticed them looking worried. He pressed the speaker button. Is something wrong? The acid you drank has become more corrosive after mixing with your digestive fluids, Dr. Taewon explained. Our container is having trouble holding it. Oh, sorry, Hyun said. He sounded apologetic. I should have warned you. Human stomach acid is pretty strong. We need it to break down proteins and kill bacteria in our food. If you want, I can neutralize it for you. I have some antacids in my bag. The idea of using antacids, something humans apparently carried for minor stomach discomfort, to neutralize something that was eating through military-grade containers seemed absurd. Please, Dr. Taewon said. Hyun got his bag and took out a small tablet. The medical team watched nervously as he opened the container, which was starting to show visible damage, and dropped the tablet inside. The mixture fizzed and foamed. Within seconds, the pH reading started moving toward neutral levels. There, Hyun said cheerfully. Problem solved. Though you might want to get better containers. These seem a bit weak. They are rated to contain compounds that would melt through a starship hull, Dr. Jiho said quietly. Oh, Earth probably has better materials for this then, Hyun said thoughtfully. We deal with aggressive chemistry regularly. I could send you some information if you want. The doctor stood in stunned silence. Humans had better materials science than the rest of the galaxy specifically, because they needed to regularly contain chemicals that everyone else considered too dangerous to even make. Director Jiwoo spoke again from the screen. Doctor, I am upgrading my recommendation to the council. We need a complete review of human capabilities. Not just biological, but also their technology and material science. Any area where their harsh world might have given them unexpected advantages. Agreed, Dr. Taewon said. He was still staring at the neutralized acid sample. I think we are only beginning to understand how different humans are. Through the glass, Hyun had gone back to reading his medical data. He had no idea that he had just triggered a galaxy-wide reevaluation of everything the other species thought they knew about what was possible. 3 days after the incident, Professor Velthari stood in front of all the academy teachers. The meeting hall was full. Teachers from 17 different departments were there. Council observers were watching too. Everyone wanted to hear what she had to say. To summarize, Professor Velthari said, her voice translated for everyone to understand. We thought we could teach human students the same way we teach everyone else. We were completely wrong. She turned on a holographic display. It showed Hyun's medical data next to data from other species. The differences were enormous. Several teachers gasped. Humans are not just another carbon-based species, she continued. They evolved in an environment so hostile that their normal biology would be classified as hazardous on most civilized worlds. What is normal for them is an emergency situation for us. Dean Bora floated forward. He was made of gas and his thoughts appeared as colored lights. Are you saying we cannot safely have human students here? I am saying we need to completely change our understanding of what safety means, Professor Velthari replied. Look at the chemistry incident. We treated it like Hyun was in danger, but he was never at risk. Meanwhile, we did not realize that his stomach acid is more corrosive than our safety protocols account for. This started a big discussion among the teachers. If humans operated on completely different biological rules, everything about the academy needed to be reconsidered. What about the two students who tried to harm the human? Asked Professor Myung from the ethics department. Their attack did not actually hurt him. Do we still treat it as attempted murder? The council has made a decision, Director Ji-woo announced. Her crystal body rang with authority. Chris and Nia clearly intended to cause serious harm, but Hyun asked for mercy, and they genuinely did not understand human biology, so they will be on probation instead of being expelled. They will also participate in the research study that Hyun proposed. This decision created controversy. Some people thought it was too light a punishment. Others thought it was appropriately educational. Most people were just confused that Hyun had defended his attackers. In a small lab on the 47th floor, that research study was already happening. Hyun sat at a table across from Chris and Nia. They were surrounded by chemical samples, scanners, and analysis equipment. The atmosphere was awkward, but they were working together. So if I understand correctly, Chris said slowly, his lizard face showing concentration, human skin makes its own acidic coating to protect against germs? Right, Hyun confirmed. He pulled up a microscopic image of human skin. We call it the acid mantle. It keeps the pH around 4.5 to 5.5. That is acidic enough to kill most bacteria but not strong enough to damage our own cells. We also make antimicrobial chemicals, oils, and we constantly shed dead skin cells to prevent anything from growing on us. Naya's crystal body made a thoughtful sound. On our worlds, we keep ourselves safe through environmental control. The idea of carrying defensive chemistry as part of your biology is disturbing. Is it? Hyun asked. He genuinely seemed confused. It seems efficient to me. Why rely on external controls when you can build the defense into your biology? Because evolving such defenses requires being under constant threat, Chris said quietly. Your species developed these abilities because not having them meant death. That is, he could not finish the sentence. Terrifying? Hyun suggested. Yes, Earth can be tough, but it is also beautiful. The challenges created strength, yes, but they also created incredible variety. We have millions of species, each with unique adaptations. It is amazing. Daeho came into the lab carrying samples. He had volunteered to help with the study. It was partly to support Hyun and partly because the research genuinely interested him. I have been comparing human tolerance ranges with other known species, Daeho announced. He put down his datapad. Humans can survive in about 73% more environmental conditions than the galactic average. We are not the most specialized at any one thing, but our ability to adapt to many things is unprecedented. How did your species even survive long enough to develop technology? Nia asked. With such a hostile environment, becoming civilized should have been impossible. Hyun and Daeho looked at each other. Then Hyun shrugged. We cooperated. Humans are very social. We form complex groups, share knowledge, and build on what previous generations discovered. Our environment was harsh, but it taught us to work together. That is probably our real superpower, not the acid tolerance or temperature resistance, but the ability to cooperate and adapt socially. This seemed to surprise Chris and Nia. They had been thinking about human physical strength, but the social adaptation might be even more important. Is that why you wanted us to work on this study? Chris asked. Instead of wanting us punished, you saw an opportunity to cooperate? Exactly, Hyun said. You two clearly have excellent chemistry skills. That acid mixture was very well made. Why waste that talent on punishment when we could learn from each other? The simple logic of this statement seemed to show something basic about how humans thought. Where other species saw moral offense that needed punishment, humans saw practical problems that needed solutions. Over the next few weeks, their research moved forward quickly. The study began attracting attention from scientists across the galaxy. Understanding how humans evolved such extreme tolerances could help with everything from medical treatments to industrial processes to colonizing new planets. Professor Velthari visited their lab often. Her initial shock had turned into real scientific enthusiasm. You are documenting biological principles we never imagined were possible, she told the team during one visit. This could revolutionize xenobiology. It is just chemistry and evolution, Hyun said modestly. Give any species enough pressure and time and they will adapt. Earth just happened to provide a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure, Professor Velthari repeated with dark humor. Yes, that is one way to describe a planet that treats weapons-grade acid as rain. The study resulted in a presentation at the Academy's annual Xenobiology Symposium. Hyun, Daeho, Chris, and Nia stood before thousands of people. Their presentation was broadcast to hundreds of worlds. They explained their findings. The data was revolutionary, not just about humans, but about the broader possibilities of biological adaptation. During questions, a researcher asked what everyone was thinking. Does this mean humans are the most resilient known species? Hyun thought carefully before answering. Resilient in certain ways, yes. But every species has strengths. Chris's people can survive temperature extremes that would kill humans instantly. Nia's species can process information through quantum crystalline structures that we cannot even see. We are not better. We are just different. That is the whole point of galactic cooperation, right? Each species contributes their unique abilities. The answer was diplomatic, humble, and completely honest. It was very human to acknowledge their advantages while refusing to claim they were superior. Over the following months, this attitude became recognized as typically human. Terrifyingly capable but unwilling to dominate. Resilient but cooperative. Powerful but gentle. The incident that began with attempted murder ended with published research, changed curricula, and a fundamental shift in how the galaxy understood biological diversity. The Academy put in new safety protocols that accounted for species like humans who did not fit traditional models. More importantly, they established programs to make sure students understood the vast differences between species before those misunderstandings could turn deadly. Hyun continued his studies. He occasionally caused small panics when his normal behaviors reminded everyone how different his normal really was. He stayed friends with Tara, who gradually became less afraid of him. His relationship with Chris and Nia grew into real academic collaboration. Their initial hostility transformed into mutual respect. The galaxy was slowly learning that humans were not just tough. They were also kind, curious, and eager to cooperate. They brought their strength, yes, but also their willingness to work together and their belief that differences should be celebrated rather than feared. 6 months had passed since the acid incident. The story had spread across the entire galaxy. Every species now knew about the human who drank deadly acid and called it refreshing. Some found it fascinating, others found it terrifying, but everyone agreed that humans were not what anyone expected. The Academy had changed in those 6 months. New safety guidelines were written specifically for human students. But these guidelines were not about protecting humans. They were about understanding that humans operated on completely different rules than everyone else. A new class had been added to the curriculum. It was called Comparative Xenobiology with focus on Death World species. Hyun was a guest lecturer. Today he stood in front of a classroom full of students from different worlds. They all wanted to understand humans better. The key thing to understand, Hyun explained, pointing at a chart showing Earth's environment, is that Earth is not actually classified as a death world in most databases. But maybe it should be. We have extreme weather, active volcanoes, dangerous animals, aggressive bacteria, and variable chemistry. Humans evolved to be adaptable above all else. A student raised a tentacle. But how did you survive long enough as a species to become intelligent? Most species that evolve on harsh worlds never make it past basic survival. Cooperation, Hyun answered simply. Humans are extremely social. A single human alone is actually pretty vulnerable. But humans working together can survive almost anything. We share knowledge, protect each other, and build tools to overcome our weaknesses. Our brains are our real adaptation, not our acid resistance. Tara was in the class. She had signed up specifically to learn more about her friend. Her jelly body was a calm blue color now, not the terrified white it had been 6 months ago. Can you explain why you were not angry at Chris and Nia? Tara asked. They tried to kill you. Most species would want revenge. Hyun thought about how to explain this. Humans have a saying, do not attribute to malice what can be explained by ignorance. Chris and Nia did not understand that their attack would not work. They made a mistake based on incomplete information. Getting revenge would not fix that mistake. But education could prevent it from happening again. That seemed more practical. But they still intended harm, Tara pointed out. Yes, Hyun agreed. And that was wrong. But humans also believe in second chances. We believe people can learn and change. Excluding them from the Academy would not teach them anything except that they were right to fear humans. Working with them showed them that humans are people too, just adapted differently. This philosophy was hard for many species to understand. Most galactic civilizations had justice systems based on punishment and deterrence. The human approach of focusing on education and rehabilitation seemed naive. But it had worked. Chris and Nia were now among the Academy's strongest advocates for human inclusion. After class, Hyun met Daiho at the cafeteria. The food options had expanded recently to include more Earth foods. Other species had been curious about human cuisine. Some of it had become surprisingly popular. I still cannot believe people are eating kimchi now, Daiho said, pointing at a group of crystalline students trying the fermented vegetables. 6 months ago, everyone thought our food was too dangerous. Fermented foods do have a lot of bacteria, Hyun said with a smile. I guess to species that did not evolve with fermentation, the idea of deliberately growing bacteria in food seems insane. Everything about Earth seems insane to them, Daiho replied. I heard a rumor that the Council is considering reclassifying Earth as a Class 4 death world. Really? What class is it now? Class 2. Challenging environment but habitable. But after all the research from your study with Chris and Nia, they are realizing that Earth is significantly more hostile than they thought. Hyun frowned. I do not want Earth to be seen as some terrible place. It is our home. It is beautiful. I know, Daiho said gently. But you have to understand how it looks from outside. A planet where the rain is acidic, where microbes wage chemical warfare, where the animals use venom and poison, where the atmosphere had to be deliberately cleaned because industrial pollution made it toxic. To species that evolved on stable, peaceful worlds, Earth sounds like a nightmare. But we love it, Hyun protested. Yes, it challenges us. But that is what makes life interesting. Every sunrise is a gift. Every generation that survives makes the next generation stronger. Earth taught us to appreciate life because it is precious and fragile. This perspective was very human. Only a species from a harsh world would see the harshness as a teacher rather than a curse. Minsu flew over to their table and landed with a flutter of feathers.
Have you heard the news?
3 new human students are arriving next semester. The Council approved a program to bring more humans to the Academy. That is wonderful, Hyun said, genuinely pleased. Are they excited? Excited and nervous, Minsu said. They have been reading reports about your incident. They are worried about how other students will react to them. Tell them not to worry, Hyun said. Things are better now. People understand us better. Well, they understand that they do not understand us, which is actually progress. Later that evening, Hyun sat in the observation lounge. It was his favorite place to think. The view showed stars and ships moving between worlds. Somewhere out there was Earth, the small blue planet that had created humans. Chris found him there. The lizard-like alien sat down carefully, keeping respectful distance. Their relationship had improved dramatically, but Chris still carried guilt about what he had tried to do. I wanted to thank you again, Chris said quietly. The Council reviewed my case today. Because of the research we did together and my good behavior, they are removing me from probation. I can continue my studies without restrictions. That is great news, Hyun said warmly. You earned it. Your work on the comparative tolerance study was excellent. I could not have done it without you, Chris said. He paused, gathering courage. Can I ask you something? Do you ever think about what would have happened if that acid had actually hurt you? If humans were not resistant like you are? Hyun considered this seriously. Sometimes. I think about how our first contact could have ended in tragedy because of a misunderstanding. That is why education is so important. The more we understand each other, the fewer misunderstandings we will have. You are very wise for someone so young, Chris observed. Not wise, Hyun corrected. Just practical. Humans learned long ago that holding grudges is exhausting. It is easier to forgive and move forward. Life is too short to spend it being angry. Nia appeared in the doorway. Her crystal body no longer showed the stress fractures from 6 months ago. She had healed completely. Am I interrupting? Not at all, Hyun said, gesturing for her to join them. We were just talking about the importance of understanding between species. I have been thinking about that too, Nia said. She sat down, her crystalline form chiming softly. I wanted to apologize again. I know I have said it before, but I need you to know that I deeply regret what we tried to do. We were ignorant and prejudiced. You could have destroyed our futures, but instead you gave us a chance to learn. That is a gift I will never forget. We all make mistakes, Hyun said simply. What matters is what we do after we make them. You both chose to learn and grow. It takes courage. The three of them sat together looking out at the stars. 6 months ago, they had been enemies. Now they were colleagues, maybe even friends. It was a strange journey, but it proved something important. The galaxy was vast and full of different species. Some were strong, some were smart. Some had abilities that seemed like magic. Humans had their own special traits: resilience, adaptability, and an unusual capacity for forgiveness. But more than any physical ability, it was the human tendency to look for solutions rather than revenge that made them valuable members of the galactic community. Word of the human approach spread. Other species started adopting similar methods. Conflicts that would have escalated into violence were instead resolved through dialogue and education. It was not perfect and it did not work every time, but it worked more often than the old ways. Hyun did not realize it, but his simple act of offering forgiveness instead of demanding punishment had started a small revolution in galactic relations. He was just being practical, being human. But sometimes the most practical approach was also the most revolutionary. As more humans joined the galactic community, the galaxy learned other lessons too. Humans were tough, yes. They could survive things that would kill most species. But they were also kind, curious, and endlessly optimistic. They looked at problems and saw opportunities. They looked at enemies and saw potential friends. The incident with the deadly acid became a teaching story. It was told on hundreds of worlds as an example of how differences between species could lead to misunderstanding, but also how those misunderstandings could be overcome through patience, education, and a willingness to forgive. Hyun finished his studies at the academy with honors. His research into comparative xenobiology became required reading for students across the galaxy. He was offered prestigious positions at research institutions on a dozen different worlds, but he chose to return to Earth.